Okay, this is a quick tutorial on the usefulness and suitability of using kite graphs as a method of presenting data. Now, the kite graph is a unique type of graph that should only be used when a couple of conditions are met within your data set. So the first is that your data needs to be gathered along a transect. And we can see in this example on the screen that this transect is going along a series of sites away from a given point to another point. Now, the transect doesn't need to be a straight line transect, but it does need to be gathering data along a line that has a distance. It doesn't actually matter how far apart the sites are, that's irrelevant, because actually what you're more interested to do is to see how something changes. The second thing is you have to have gathered your data or converted your data into percentages. So we're looking at the percentage of something along a line transect. So for example, in this first example here, we can see that the data has been gathered for 3 different species of plant. And we've started at one location and we've traveled to a further distant location called site 20, and therefore we've probably stopped 20 times. So there's 20 sample locations. And each of those, the amount of sea sandwort, the amount of marram grass, and the amount of rest harrow has been gathered. And once that data is converted into a percentage, as in the percentage of the site that has each of these plants, we're able to plot it. And what you can then do, well, the first thing you have to do is whatever the percentage is, you have to split that percentage in half and you plot on either side. So, for example, at site 1, this sea sandwort had 40% in total. So what we do is we divide that by 2, that's 20%. And on the scale going up the way, we plot up to 20, as we've done there. And on the scale going down the way, we plot down to 20. Now, as we move to the second location, we recorded no sea sandwort, and therefore the line comes straight down to the 0. So 0, this line here represents there being no percentage. And at no point after the first site do we see sea sandwort at all, and therefore it doesn't show up. In contrast, at site 1 here, as I'm showing, there was no marram grass, but by the time we get to site 2, we've got a very small amount, probably something like 10%. So we've split the 10 in half for 5. So there we've got 5, there we've got 5. We can see at this site here, site 1, 2, 3, 4, we've gone up to 20% of 40%, I should say. So we've marked 20% on the scale that goes above the 0 line and 20 below. So in total, 40% of this location had marram grass. If we get any site that's got complete coverage of something, 100%, as you can see here at site 13, or site 12, I should say, then you have 50% on one side and 50% on the other. Now, what makes this suitable? Well, first of all, it allows you to clearly see visually the changing percentages along a transect of something. It allows you to easily identify locations where there was the most of a particular factor. For example, this location here, we see the most marram grass, as well as areas where there was less of it. You also very clearly get to see when there was none of something. Okay, anomalies stand out. So an anomaly might be, for example, here in the rest harrow where there is none for a period of time for 2 sites, but then it reappears again. Another key strength of this is you can actually, if you're measuring multiple things along a line, you can show one graph for each of them, and as long as you put them above or below each other, you can then compare them. So, for example, I can see that as marram grass increased dramatically, the amount of rest harrow decreased. And you can see if one of them is potentially influencing the other. Another example here we can see is this time it's the percentage of land use. So we are in the city centre and we can see that 100% of the land use is retail in the CBD. And as we move progressively out, we can see that percentage changes to 0 between sites 4 and 5. We get a little bit of retail at site 7. And then we get 20% at site 9. So that's the 10 and the 10. Likewise, we could contrast that with housing, and there's no housing at site 1, 2, and 3, and then it increases to site 6 to 100% of the land use. So that's just a different technique. What's consistent, though, is we've got the minus 50, plus 50, either side of the horizontal 0 line, and we've got a number of sites. And what you can also see here is a bunch of other possible factors for using this technique that you would possibly use to answer this question.